Okay, we welcome you to a special presentation of USF Athletics, the first 15 months with USF Director of Athletics, Joan McDermott. My name is Vinnie Longo. I do the marketing for the athletics department, and thank you for joining us today, wherever you may be. We wish you safety and health. Now, Joan, we're here to talk about your first year plus a couple of months leading the athletics department on the Hilltop, and what a year it's been, right?
Oh my gosh, what a year in 3 months. Had to throw that in, of course.
Of course. I think it'd be fair to say that it's been pretty turbulent in a lot of ways, and yet we've all felt stable throughout it thanks to your leadership. Good. So first off, Thank you for that. I'd love it if you would take us through, just from 35,000 foot perspective, some of the pivotal moments from this year.
As you know, I think it was within a week me starting as being named as the athletic director. Kyle Smith got a call from Washington State, about being the coach. And I'm like, oh, coach, no way. He's like, no, I'm not going. They're just calling me. I'm just going to talk to them, and of course that moved very quickly. He got the job. We were super thrilled for him. But here we were, without our great coach, and never dreamed when I'd taken over the week or two before that that could happen that quickly. Of course, then Eddie Soto, our men's soccer coach, resigned. So we had to get a search started there, hiring a new men's soccer coach with Leonard Griffin. Great coach. We're so happy to have him on our staff. And we really took our time in that search because we wanted to make sure we had the right individual in terms of, we involved our alumni in that selection. Here's the other thing that happened my first week on the job. Realized, we had a chase game. We don't have a contract yet, nor did we have an opponent. So I'm like, oh my gosh. All right, we got to hire a men's basketball coach. We got to get an opponent, sign that contract. So that chase game was signed off on in mid-June. So went from hiring a basketball coach, men's soccer, to, the chase game, and then breaking ground on the Sobrato Club, on the Sobrato Center. And, I, along with everyone else, had heard, hey, it's going to all be done. We'll have it for next season. And then come to find out that, well, maybe we'll have it by January. Then, well, maybe it's going to be March. And obviously we know what happened and didn't have it last year at all. But it's an exciting project. And I know we'll come back probably and talk through some of those details. But of course, that's another biggie. And then as we go into this year, fall sports went well. Winter sports, men's basketball was on a roll, playing their best game ever. They were just ready to go into the NIT. We thought we'd get a bid. Unofficially, we heard, but of course nothing official at that time. And then even our one track athlete, the night before, she's supposed to run in the national meet, that gets canceled. Basketball gets canceled. That was March 12th. Our baseball team was heading down to Pepperdine. So really crazy day for us, of course. And the days to come after that, canceling spring seasons. And then here we are still. We thought once we, went to shelter in place, that was mid-March, like March 17th, maybe 16th, somewhere in there. Sure, by May, we're going to be great. Well, here we are in July. We're still dealing with it. And not only that, we're going into our fall, and things could change very quickly in this situation, and what's going to happen with our fall sports and even our winter sports this next year.
As they've changed quickly this entire time, right? I feel like
absolutely. So, as we said a few minutes ago, what I know today, 2-3 days from now, could be totally different. It's rapid fire all the time right now. And so I think you just have to be very steady with it and just be on solid ground. It's important you guys feel like we're in a stable place and we're moving forward and we're going to be okay. And so that's the way I've been. And I truly believe that at the same time. We have an incredible university, an amazing athletic department, student athletes, leadership on campus, our alumni community. I know we're going to be okay. but it's rough right now. Of course it is. And, you worry about everyone's health and people getting sick, and, it's very difficult what you see on TV sometimes. And then the Black Lives Matters issue, that was a whole thing in itself, and that's continuing. And we're really happy to play an active role with our student athletes and on our campus with that initiative.
Yeah, and I think it would also be remiss to say that in talking about how stable the department has been and what a strong sense of community we've had in terms of both the Black Lives Matter movement and in terms of just the support that our student athletes feel, they put in a record for their GPA this spring.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, after the fall, we had a very high GPA. I think our second highest in history. And then come spring, when those kids had to switch to online, we had our highest GPA ever. And that was before grades were changed to a pass. So we really had an exceptional semester. Everyone worked hard. I think the key is our staff as well, supporting our student athletes, the CASA coaches, our coaches being committed to our student athletes and their academics first.
Well, all I can say about that is, wow, what a first 15 months.
Yeah.
I certainly wish I could say the next 15 will be easier, and I certainly hope so for all of our sakes. Now, in talking about the staff and what a great staff we have, I want to look at your executive staff. As we take a deeper dive into some of the pieces that we just discussed, let's talk about some of those new hires that you got to make within just a few months,
Sure.
or as you talked about, weeks of
Sure.
your appointment.
I was hired in March. My first hire for my staff was not until early July, but I would be remiss to not first point out that having Frank Alaco on staff, we've been in step all the way through when we were both senior associates, working very, very closely. So that's been a critical piece for me, as well as Mark Papadopoulos, incredible hard worker, gives so much back to all the students, coaches, and staff. And then so my first hire, Linda Lappy, I was so happy to get her on our staff because she'd been a former women's basketball coach. She had coached in the Pac-12. So she knew that level, not only as a coach, but really as an administrator too. So she had a clear vision what that looked like. And because, we're wanting to get our program, continue to elevate it. So that was an important piece. Plus I knew she was very strong, very good communicator, very good with details in terms of handling the operation. So I've been able to step back from that and allow her to run with it. But the other great part is she understands coaches, having been a coach herself. And it's funny because here's Frank, former coach, myself, and Linda. There's very few, if any, senior level teams in an athletic department where they've all been former college coaches and successful. So I feel very fortunate to have everyone, and Linda brings a whole new perspective, and you can tell everyone really appreciates her.
Yeah, we also feel fortunate to have that coach's mentality among our executive staff. I can tell you that much from a staff member level. Talking about some of the other hires, you mentioned it briefly earlier. You had basketball and soccer, two of the premier programs of the department, had their head coaches leave within 14 days of your appointment. Take us through that.
So with men's basketball, let's start there. For me, honestly, I was fortunate to have traveled most of the season with our men's basketball team. Coach Smith had asked me if I could make a commitment to come in as much as possible. I'm like, what, are you crazy? How am I going to do that? But I did it. And it was great to be around them and see what they do. But through that, it gave me an opportunity to see the assistant coaches, because I'm always watching and always trying to help people get better and grow themselves. But I could tell Todd was really just about there, ready to be a head coach. Coach Smith had him play a big role on the staff. He really, I could tell, knew his X's and O's. He had a great relationship with our student athletes, a great balance with it. It wasn't like just an assistant coach. It was at a higher level. So I felt like he could make that transition to being a head coach. So fortunately, I was able to observe those things. And I think as an athletic director, it's really good to always look a step ahead. Say if Coach Smith does leave, Coach Soto, Eddie Soto, if he leaves, you should always be trying to think ahead who could be possibilities. And you like to observe them along the way to say, hey, would they fit here? Obviously they don't necessarily know, you're kind of watching them there. So it was good for me to have that time to evaluate Todd. I know on the outside, people didn't know those pieces. It just seemed like, oh, that's an easy hire, not doing a search, just name the associate head coach. But I felt deeply and strongly that he could be a very good head coach for us. Number one, he had to have the right staff, and I'll get to that in a minute. The only thing, he had the maturity. The only thing we didn't know was how he would actually handle a game. What would he be like in the middle of the game? Managing the pressure, the whole piece. We didn't really know that, and nor would you until he's actually in that situation. And obviously, I was pleasantly surprised. I remember one game down the stretch against one of our it was a conference game, and the other coach was very seasoned, experienced. And I remember Todd just out coaching him, and I was like, yeah, good job. This young guy, he's got it. He's going to be fine. But part of the plan, once I talked to Todd and he said he'd love to have the job, was that, okay, who are we going to hire? Number one, to replace yourself. And there's another open position because Coach Phelps went with Coach Smith. So, he had an idea of what he was looking for, and I agreed with him. So we hired Coach McGee, who's from the Bay Area. It was great to be able to bring him back home. Because part of Todd's vision was, we really need to recruit the Bay Area. We need to get the top kids from the Bay Area to come to USF. That's what we did in the old days. So let's do it again. The other position, I know Todd had a clear vision. He wanted someone that had bigger, more international type recruiting contacts. And he talked to me about Mamadou and said, this is probably really a long shot. I know this guy. We played together in Israel. He's, played in the NBA. He's been a coach, at this level and this level. He's going to be at the Final Four. Joan, if you're going to be there, I'd like you to meet him. And so I was at Final Four, and we had a meeting with Mamadou. And when that was done, I'm like, Todd, he's your guy. He is absolutely your guy. Because not only from the recruiting standpoint, personally, he's just a wonderful man and really has great intentions, loves the student athletes, has their best interests all the time. He's got our bigs. And that was the fun part. If you ever got in the gym last summer and last fall to see him work with our bigs, oh my gosh, it was so cool for them to learn from Mamadou. And you could just see their growth. So, it was a long shot. And I was glad I got to be there at the Final Four to meet him and talk to him. And then the conversations kept going. And then Mamadou came out on a visit, still thinking it's going to be difficult to get him. And he said yes. And he's a critical piece as well. And, of course, Coach Hovde is huge on the staff, and having his stability, he's a big piece of the program as well. So that was a piece. The other thing that I loved about Todd, he had worked under Coach Smith, but he had also worked at Auburn under Bruce Pearl. And I knew a friend of mine is the administrator over men's basketball there. So we had a couple conversations before about Todd, and he said, look, our staff loves him. They would have loved to have kept him here. He's got a great eye for recruiting. A lot of our success is due to him. He's the one who found these kids. And, he said nothing but positive. So it was good to see that Todd had a variety of experience. So all those pieces played a role, as well as, our team wasn't broken. we didn't need to fix it. If we had decided to do a search, even over a couple of weeks, we would have probably lost some of our kids in the transfer portal, because times are changing now with that. So, they were all behind Todd. I was able to have quiet conversations with a few of them and get their input. And that's what we did. And he's been great for us. We're really happy to have him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, 20 wins in your debut season certainly is nothing to scoff at.
And probably an NIT bid,
Right. Yeah. A lot of good stuff happened. Yeah. Well, hopefully more in the future.
Yep, for sure.
Looking at men's soccer, we touched on that earlier. Another vacancy that happened, bang right after Kyle Smith left. Eddie Soto resigned, or right in that same week. Talk about the process of finding Leonard.
So we did a national search there. Although we really, if we could find someone with West Coast ties, that was important. We do try, if we're going to go out, we do try and find somebody that's maybe been a proven head coach, successful head coach. We couldn't find that individual in our pool of candidates. And as, we made calls, but it just wasn't the right fit. And Leonard just really rose to the top. And if you looked at his resume, every place he had been, the program was very successful. And he played a key role in that program's success, whether it was UCLA, St. Mary's, or Portland. So in talking to all three administrations and people on their staff, they had nothing but great things to say about him and felt he was ready to be a head coach. So, and we felt he was a great fit for us. And again, we had some alumni involved in the process of our hire, and we're really happy to get Leonard. We're really happy also about the direction he's taking the program. It was a little bit of a rough year because by the time he got here, they really didn't get a spring season, and then he didn't get really to recruit. So the first year's been a little rocky in terms of in season, but they really did make some progress. And it's unfortunate they didn't get a spring season, but he has signed some very good players for this coming year.
Yeah, I'd also say I love how he fits in just with the staff on our hallway. He's a lot of fun to have across the hallway from the marketing comms office.
Yes, and his staff is great as well. Yeah.
How about taking us through some of the projects? You alluded to some of these earlier as well. Let's start with the ones that you inherited, and then move on to the projects you've originated and are now spearheading.
Sure. So the Sobrato Center with our club level, so I did inherit that, of course, jumped in right away. We thought we were breaking ground in May. It didn't happen until June, which was okay. Those things happen, but it's just felt like, honestly, it's been slow process. Of course, then with COVID, that's delayed it some as well. But we're really excited about it. It's going to be a really cool space. It'll be open to the campus to use. There's going to be different reasons to use it. You can even have classes there, meetings for all events in our facility, Silk Series speakers. It's just a great space, and it's been fun picking things out for it. The seating's going to be beautiful and very comfortable. Where do you do the food, all that stuff. Thankfully, we have incredible people on campus to help us with all those pieces with their expertise. So, that's been fun watching it come along. And now that I live across the street, I hear it all the time. They're moving very quickly now. They really are. And we're hoping that it's done early November. That's what we're hearing. I guess it could go all the way into December, but fingers crossed, it's done in early November. The other two projects, so we have the Silk Family Unity Hall. That's basically our Hall of Fame. It's going to be beautiful. We're putting that together now. It's going to be in the lobby, so there won't be an entrance into the gym there. Our lobby's going to turn into the Unity Hall, and from there, we're going to build a social justice museum through the building. and just tell an incredible story about how University of San Francisco athletics ties in with social justice and everything that's happened through history and how much we've been a part of that history. So we can't wait to show people once the concepts are finally done. We're having very detailed conversations right now about it. We probably won't be able to actually do the work until next spring. We haven't even talked those details, but it'll be done sometime in this next year. We're very, very excited about that project. And then the Malloy Pavilion, which will be our practice facility, that is in the planning process with the city. And they said initially anywhere from a year to a year and a half. I do know that was delayed some with COVID, but my understanding is now that it's moving well through the process. And this fall, there'll be some things that come up. And I don't exactly know what that is. You know, San Francisco, it's tough. It's a very strict, hard process. My last job in Denver, we built this big athletic complex, $17 million, and there were no issues getting it through the city, you know, but it's just different here because everything is so tight, so close together. And so you have to respect that with our neighbors and everyone involved. So we're very excited about that project. Fingers crossed, I would love to break ground on that next summer. We still have some money to raise, and we're hoping to get that done within the next 6 months and hopefully break ground next summer. With having that building online, that really does open the Sobrato Center to be an event center. I think that's extremely important for our whole campus. We want to integrate other programs on our campus into athletics, and the more we can get them in that building, the better. They'll learn more and more about us, and especially, you know, looking at the Social Justice Museum, the Unity Hall, it's going to be really, really exciting what's going on.
Well, you can see my fingers crossed. You can't see my toes crossed, but they are, I promise. I do love how you phrase that, how all three of those projects, the buildings, are tied together. They're not just individual pieces. They're part of one larger whole. I love that way of thinking. The other thing I wanted to ask you about as far as projects go, the Chase Center doubleheader. You touched on that when you were looking over the timeline of the last 15 months.
Yeah.
That was something that you inherited, and you mentioned the state of it when you got it, and then saw it through to an incredible conclusion. Take us through that a little bit.
Yeah, so, you know, that was probably one of the most nerve-wracking pieces for me, because I felt like it was getting late and we needed to find an opponent, and we needed to get a contract signed. It's amazing how it all worked out, and that's a credit to our staff, including yourself, Vinnie, and Frank, and everyone on the external team, as well as our campus partners. Our alumni people, huge help. Our advancement team, the president, all the VPs, everyone bought in, and it was a great opportunity to pull so many people together. If you went into you probably didn't because you were so busy, but there was a reception that the alumni put together, and it was packed. And there were people there that came up to me and said, I haven't been to a USF game in years. Thank you for doing this. And that, again, it's all back to athletics connecting the university. What can we do to really help that? So it was a great opportunity for that. And we're hoping to do it again. The plan was to do it this fall. I don't think that's going to happen, just given with everything going on. We might have to skip a year, unfortunately. But our plan is to continue having that game. And I know the Warriors and Chase Center is really excited about our partnership as well.
Oh, it was certainly a lot of fun to be a part of, and definitely looking forward to future iterations of our games there as well. So I think we should talk now about, you've mentioned it a couple times, the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
And we talked on a previous recording, but this is a couple of months ago now, hard to believe, how that developed from your perspective. And now we have a little bit of hindsight on that, and also a little bit more perspective in the present. So I guess, could you start from the beginning of the
Sure.
pandemic? What happened, when it happened, in our context, and then what are we looking at right now?
So before we went to our conference tournament for basketball in Vegas, of course, we were all aware of it. And, people were a little concerned about making sure they wash their hands, have sanitizer, but little did we know, within less than a week, the whole NCAA tournament would be canceled and all spring sports would be canceled. So it just happened so quickly, coming rapid fire, boom, boom, boom. But, and it just snowballed, so it was very interesting to be in the middle of that on how it was moving. I never quite experienced that in that way, but, we didn't know what the future brought, except we felt by summer, once it starts getting warm, summer virus, will go away. Maybe it'll come back next winter. No one really knew. And then sadly, you see the pictures on TV about New York and New Jersey and different areas with all the sick people. And you just felt horrible seeing all that and realizing that, there's a lot more important things in our little athletic program at the end of the day. And then, part of that too was trying to get our student athletes home. Some of them, were flying internationally. We had a volleyball player that's from Venice, Italy, and it took her a long time to get home. In our international office for students on campus, they are huge partners for us, and they were very helpful for her to be able to get home. So as you know, this has been ongoing, but we, even up to 2 weeks ago, we were very positive about this fall and feeling like everything was going to be great. And then, as you've seen with football teams coming back for practices, all the issues they've had, and some have had to shut down their camps, and even, in the NBA and Major League Baseball, and you see those pro teams with the access they have to everything, and they're having issues. And then you're like, how are we going to make this work? But we feel, for us, we have an incredible plan that's been put together. It's very well thought out. We talked to the university and said, hey, let us be the pilot for the university. We can bring a small group of students back. Both basketball teams can be in volunteer practice now and start official practice July 20th. So, we've honestly been the guinea pigs on much of this. Does this work with testing, going back and forth? And it's been great. And I think the university, feels like they can trust us now, between our athletic training staff and Linda overseeing that group and working with our team physician, and then working with the public health department and the city attorney's office, putting that all together. It's been a lot of work, but we feel really good about it, because most important is we want our kids to have the opportunity to participate and compete, but we want them to be safe and healthy. And not only our student athletes, but our coaches and staff as well. We just really want these kids to have an opportunity to compete, but do it in a safe environment. They need to feel comfortable coming back here. Their parents, families need to feel comfortable about them coming back. So we do not take that lightly. We, again, work very hard on these plans. So we'll tell you in 3, 4, 5, 6 days where we are, right?
Yeah, and then it could change again in another 3, 4, 5 days.
Yeah, I wish I had, I could tell the future, where it's going to go. I just know somehow we will compete. Again, maybe it's delayed in the fall, but there is conversations about moving it to spring. And I think most people have probably heard that about the football. For those Power Fives, football is very, very important. So, we'll see. If that's the case, we'll make it all work, and we'll be looking for volunteers to be announcers and stat keepers, because we might have 3 events going on all at the same time.
It'll be a really interesting spring, huh? One piece of the pandemic and the fallout from canceling the spring seasons, when they were canceled, were the extra year of eligibility granted to spring athletes by the NCAA. I feel
Right.
like that hasn't been talked about much lately.
Sure.
Are there any
Sure.
updates? Do we know who's coming
Sure.
back?
Sure. We do. It's been a little bit of a moving target. First of all, it was so unfortunate for those spring student athletes. You know, our teams, man, we were going to have a great spring. You know, our baseball team was really getting on a roll. Our track team was going to have a fantastic year. You know, golf teams and tennis as well. Our men's golf, you know, we felt like they could make the NCAA tournament. So it's unfortunate, that piece. So yes, we did quickly get to, okay, seniors, is it good for them to come back, maybe start grad school? Maybe they haven't finished their degree yet, but really by the end of, if not by the end of summer, by the end of fall, they'll all have their degrees. So it was really a matter of, you know, is there a grad program they would like to start? And is this the best thing for them to do? Some have chosen not to come back. Certainly we understand. And then others are coming back. I would say roughly between all our spring sports, we probably have 9 or 10 that are coming back. And it's a mix, probably more in baseball. You know, one of our kids, Robert, just signed with the Giants. You know, he was in the transfer portal to transfer as a grad student, but we're so happy he signed with the Giants. But, you know, if we have an opportunity to play this spring, we'll have a very, very good team. No question about it. And so the money, you know, how did we work that out? We're having to raise some of it, but our coaches have been very good with taking their regular scholarship budget and trying to work the numbers, because like baseball, he hadn't used all his money and he would prefer not to have his roster get too big, you know, because that's hard. You know, you have a lot of guys, how do you play everybody in a sport like baseball? So we just worked through it with each individual coach, and, you know, we're happy to give many of those kids an opportunity to continue and finish their last year of eligibility.
One other thing that popped up in the middle of the pandemic, and it's another unexpected situation, was the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement.
Right. Right.
USF had a very strong response on a number of different fronts, and you were at the center of it. I would love to hear about your perspective on what transpired in late May.
Sure. So I've learned a lot, quite honestly, in the last month. You know, it's heartbreaking. You know, I've had the opportunity to talk one-on-one with some of our student athletes and the experience they've had through their lives. It just, again, breaks my heart to hear their stories. And it makes me realize I can't sit back. Yeah, I'm supportive, but I can't sit back. I need to have a voice, and our department needs to have a voice and be leaders. And interesting part was that Sunday we put out a statement. It was actually one of our head coaches through email that got our other head coaches having a great dialogue and talking. You know, we've got to step up. We've got to have a voice. So out of that dialogue in email, we came up with, you know, we need to have a statement. So I immediately got a hold of Matt. He worked on that. He talked to some of our coaches, and we felt really good about what we put out there. And then at the same time, Katie Morgan and Wu do such a great job. They had wanted to talk to some of our student athletes, so we did that. And then again, I've continued to have those conversations. One is our former basketball player, Dop. She has another year of grad school, so she's going to be around, and she's going to be my coach, I told her. She's going to assist me as we go through and make sure that we are doing things the right way and we have a strong voice. So we've come up with our own committee to work on this, and I'll be coming and asking some of our staff if they'd like to volunteer and be on that anti-racism task force as we develop our plan internally.
Yeah, this isn't a new thing for the department, right? I mean,
No.
You mentioned it's part of our hall at some of the most important teams in our department's history. Absolutely.
It's part of our legacy. And it's so sad that it's still going on. So that's why I think we have to be so strong and vocal, you know, to try and make this better, improve, and have it go away.
Well, in thinking about the future and improving things for the future, I'd like to, for the last piece of this reflection, end on a positive note. So maybe take us through some of the highlights of your first year plus 3 months
Sure.
steering this ship.
So, I think the first highlight is hiring both those coaches. They're great individuals, they're incredible fit. The student athletes, everything's very positive there. We have overall, all our coaches, we have an amazing group of coaches. We're very fortunate. Going to our facilities, going to the Chase game, having a great men's basketball season this past year, and then our spring sports. But I'll tell you what's really interesting that I never really thought of, and I did mention it when I said the coaches started to email each other and have a great dialogue. It is amazing the dialogue they're having, as we're on these Zoom meetings. It feels like you get zoomed out by the end of the day, but we've been having these Zoom meetings with all our head coaches, and the dialogue between them is so fantastic. And that's been one of my goals, because I feel that's very important to our culture, that they're there for each other and to support each other, because they can learn from each other. They're a head coach, they're in season and it's tough competition, and, something's going on. Who do they talk to? Their colleagues are all, other coaches, basketball coaches. But if they know they have the support of our coaches in our department, like Jack Kennedy, he's a former basketball coach. He's been, I know, a great resource for Todd within the staff, but they're all doing it with each other now. And it's really great to see some of our coaches that have been around a few years, start to show some leadership for our younger ones. So that to me is one of the most positive things, as well as getting to know these student athletes at a more personal level.
Yeah, that's a pretty good first couple of highlights from your first 15 months. And one more thing I wanted to ask you about is the partnership with KNBR 1050. They covered the men's basketball games last year. Yeah. How did that come about, and
wow.
What did that mean?
That was a huge highlight for us this year. KNBR with their brand, they're big time when you think of sports talk shows on radio. I mean, for us to be tied with KNBR was huge. A big thank you to Jack Boland and his team assisting and putting this together, and the people at KNBR, they're top notch. And oh man, we have some great plans for this year, and excited to really continue that partnership. They really, just in the 1 year, helped elevate our program, and we know that's only going to continue. So they're very excited, just like we are. That's a huge success for us. Thank you. And you did a great job working with them as well.
It was a pleasure, and I look forward to it in the future as well. Joan, that's all that I'd really prepared for you question-wise. Is there anything else from your first year that you'd like to close with?
Yeah, I would just like to thank everyone. First and foremost, our student athletes, their dedication and hard work, being students first, athletes second. We're so proud of all of you. Then, our coaches, staff, our other partners on campus, as well as our alumni and community. Thank you to all of you, because we wouldn't be here where we are, having the success and growing and continuing to elevate our program without all of you. Thank you. Hopefully a year from now, we're coming back, and, we've had great seasons and everyone stayed healthy, and here we go.
Yeah, hopefully a year from now, we're having this conversation about 2 years in person.
There you go. I like that much better.
This has been a special presentation of USF Athletics, the first 15 months with Director of Athletics Joan McDermott. For Joan, I am Vinnie Longo. Thank you so much for joining us today. Until next time, stay safe, stay well, and go Dogs.